welcome to emilykatemadethis. I am Emily Kate and I'm coming to you from Berlin in Germany. And welcome to another vintage knitting machine project. And not just any vintage knitting machine, my new one. So, backstory, just quickly. I purchased a vintage knitting machine from 1956 back in May, and it came with a ribber, and I could not get that ribber to work. I spent over a week basically doing the same thing on repeat, it seems, and nothing working. So I came across another one on eBay that was a 20-minute walk from where I live. How could I refuse? And it came with a bunch of very fun stuff, which I will show you over the course of the video or in time. Basically, it's the same machine, but slightly different. I don't know if it's getting distracted. I don't know if it's older or younger because it's not exactly the same, but I did discover that my original machine is very, very well loved. Now that I have seen this one and seen how the needles look and how different and better they are, I've realised how much knitting the original machine has done in its lifetime. So of course I'm not giving it away, it's still here. I've just got this one, I've just cleaned it up. Don't know if I recorded much, but if I did, I'll add some footage at some point in this video. But I bought it so I could get the ribber. Spoiler alert, I can't get the ribber to work. The good news is both of the ribbers are doing the same thing, which must mean I am the problem, because the ribbers are both kind of new in comparison to the machines, but they also show signs of use, which means they have been used. And if I can't get them to work, that does not mean that they are broken. I am. I don't know how to get them to work. So for now, the ribber is put aside, but I wanted to mention the machine because I'm going to show you some footage of making my project, and you might notice that it's a different machine. So this is a very different thing for me. I'm actually recording this intro before I have made the project. Generally, I make the project, then record my intro and outro and all the things. This time, I mean, technically I have started, but I haven't finished it. I can't turn the camera. I've made about this much of the project. So let me tell you what the project is. I have decided to make a Sunray Pleated Skirt on my machine. It's kind of autumn, it's September, end of September, and I thought it would be very fun to make a woolly skirt so that my legs do not freeze themselves off during the winter. And the colour I have chosen is just so perfectly autumn that I thought I'd make it now. This is another cone of woolly knits, British breeds 4-ply. I purchased this back in 2020 and it has just sat here just like all the others since then. What is that, 4 years? So it is time. And because this is so thin, it's 480 meters, I think, per 100 grams. I don't enjoy knitting with it by hand at all, but I really enjoy the fabric that it makes, and I really enjoy using it on my knitting machine. So now the two have found each other and I can now wear the clothes and knit with it and be happy the entire time. So this is the yarn I've chosen. I really hope it's enough. I'm just assuming it's enough. Why is it that every time I record I get messages, but when I don't record it's silent? Let's see if I can continue without being interrupted. I know I could put it on silent, but anywho, hopefully I have enough. The pattern is basically 6 panels that are exactly the same. So I cast on whatever it was, 100 stitches I think, and then I made a hem, and now I'm knitting up and decreasing after every certain amount of stitches that it says, and then I will measure it and see what size it has come out. Technically I have the same gauge, but as you know from that hat, I don't know. I don't know if it's really the same. It's technically the same gauge, but the fabric doesn't work the same way that I'm imagining that these vintage wools did, because my twin set that I made, I will link it around here, that one, the sleeves came out super small, even though the stitch count was correct, and I've checked the gauge so many times. It's 8 stitches by 11 or 12 rows. I can't remember now. But hey ho. Oh, I'm wearing a vintage knit. Shall I mention this one? This is my first ever knit on my machine. This is my Happy Happy t-shirt. Let me show you. This, the devil, this is ribbing that I did by hand manipulation on the machine, and I have absolutely no intention of ever doing that again. Hence why I really wanted my ribber to work. One day, if any of you have a vintage Knittax knitting machine and you know how to use the ribber, please contact me. If you happen to live in Berlin and have one, definitely please contact me. I need to see how someone else uses it, because the YouTubes that I've watched, I feel like I'm following them exactly, but obviously I can't be, because otherwise I would get the same results as they do. But hey ho, I am going off on a tangent again. So wish me luck. I really, really, really want this project to work, and I will check back in with you as I progress. So I got very distracted just now, so just wanted to say I never actually finished talking about this, but I did do a whole video on it if you want to know more details. But this was the first thing I knitted on my machine. It was knitted in cotton and with some cute little scraps that I had. But they weren't really scraps, they were very tiny, tiny balls of 20 grams or 10 grams, and I used them on this. Many mistakes were made, but I love it anyway. Just started working on my project, and I thought I wanted to mention, if you watched my bathing suit, my bikini video, the 1930s one, I'll link it somewhere, you will know that I discovered, actually did I discover it in that video, or did I discovered that in the next project after that? I made a big faux pas in that, where I thought that I was decreasing on the edges, but I wasn't. I was binding off, so it was becoming really tight, and I didn't understand why on one of them it looked like it did, but not on the other. And I thought the bind off just was different, and thought the cast off was different, but I was binding it off. So then I did my 1940s twin set and suddenly realized I was doing it completely wrong. So now I am doing the correct decrease. I'm not sure what it's called. I think this one is the fully fashioned decrease, but I could be wrong there. I don't really retain the names of all these things, I just retain how to do them. So I'm going to show you. I'm still very faffy with how I do it because the fabric gets caught under the sinkers, so I have to press them, and I use my fingers to do it. So I'm sure if you are a knitting machine pro, you will cringe at how I do it, but oh well. You'll survive. I do. So let me show you. But I just wanted to say I am doing the skirt, and the calculations would suggest that it would come out at about 25 inches for the waist. It says in the pattern it will be between 26 and 28 inches finished. Not entirely sure how that works. I'm assuming they're taking into account the stretch of the fabric, but my fabric is not very stretchy, so I don't have high hopes for that. And I also just realised that my fabric changes. It seems like when it's on the machine it does one thing, and then when it comes off and relaxes it does another. I'm pretty certain that when I recorded my 2 projects that use the same wool, it came out at 8 stitches per 1 inch or 2.5 centimeters, but I have to move my hand. I have just measured the gauge and it's 9 stitches. So although I washed and blocked it and I checked the gauge before I made my projects and after I made my projects and before I filmed, and it was 8, and I've measured it so many times, it's actually weird. It seems like over time it then just stretches into, or doesn't stretch, it shrinks. So I've just measured the hat that I made and the cardigan. Both came out surprisingly small considering I was on gauge. Well, fast forward like 2 weeks and the fabric weirdly shrinks back down to 9 stitches. And I don't stretch my knits, I just wash them, fold them in a towel, leave them on the floor, let them do their thing. So that is very weird. So it has thrown off all the calculations I've made for my skirt because I did it all for 8 stitches. So I have changed the stitch count, and at this moment, if it all goes to plan, and I have 9 stitches, the finished piece should come out at 29.5 inches. But I'm still confused because I have to I have to do seam allowances because I have to seam all the pieces together. So I don't know how this is going to work, but I've only added a few more stitches to what the pattern says. We'll see what happens. If I have to add another panel, okay, I can do that. Well, hopefully, assuming I have enough wool. And if it comes out too big, that's fine. I can just bring in the seam allowances, but I don't know. I think maybe the wool is just not as squishy and stretchy as the one in the original pattern, but we'll find out. I'm not doing it as long as the pattern says because, excuse my mess, I'm very short, so I don't think I needed 31 inches long. This is my hem, and I dropped a couple of stitches when trying to pick it up, but it'll be fine. I'm looking forward to blocking this so it doesn't look like this sausage, and as you can see it's very dense, so I don't think it's going to stretch an awful lot, but alas, we'll find out. At the moment it seems that it's going to be about 26 inches long. I will put centimeters up soon. Okay, so I started seaming them together and then I suddenly realised this is a Sunray pleated skirt and there are no pleats. What do I do? So I just made a mistake where I pleated it on the wrong side and now I've lost it. I pleated it on the wrong side and so I have redone it on this one. And instead of doing a zigzag, I've done a straight stitch and I hope it stays. And it's going to take a lot longer because I have to sew every single one 3 times. So one on here, one to attach it to the next piece, and one to attach it to the next piece. Hello everyone! So it's been quite a while since I recorded because I have lost my voice, so I'm going to be very quiet when I talk to you, and I may have to do this in several stages, or I may have to edit the volume on the video. I last recorded back in September, I think. My mum came to visit and I lost my voice. It seems to be a yearly thing. I don't know why. I have absolutely no idea what happens, but for the last 4 years, around this time of the year, something happens to my throat and my voice just goes. So you might recall a couple of years ago I did a silent podcast because I lost my voice for a month, and this is week 4, and although I can talk, it's really difficult, and I get stages in the day where I can't talk at all, and then other times it's a bit strained like now. But I have some grapes and some water. I really want to finish this video because I have a backlog. So you will have seen the footage of making the skirt. Hopefully you've now seen the finished result. I'm gonna have some grapes. I feel a bit frustrated that I can't talk to you in deep detail about my project, but it's better to talk about it a little bit than not at all. So the skirt was 442 grams in total in weight. I followed the pattern and then realized that my gauge changed when I measured everything, my last 3 projects I think, right off of the machine, and right after sewing together they were all 8 stitches in 1 inch, 2.5 centimeters. But then over time, when they sort of somehow relaxed but did the opposite, they're all now 9 stitches, which explains why my cardigan was a bit tight afterwards and why my hat came out too small, because although I measured it several times on each project, every time it said 8. Then after like a little time off of the machine and after being blocked, washed, somehow it went to 9 much later. So the skirt pattern originally was for 8 stitches, and it said that it would fit a 26 to 28 inch waist. And when I calculated actually how many stitches would be in the whole skirt for 7 panels and the amount of stitches that were per panel, it would actually come out to 23 inches. And then I thought, how is it ever going to stretch to 29, which is what I need? And so I thought, I think I'll need to add another panel. I definitely did. So I made 8 panels instead of 7, and I actually changed the stitch count because I had to have a smaller stitch count at the very end, but I didn't want it to be 23 inches. And seeing as my gauge was off, it would have been 25 inches, I think, if I had kept at the same stitch count and made 8 panels. So I made it bigger. So mine actually finished at 32 inches, and I, instead of using a zip, because I didn't have a zip and I didn't have any interfacing for knit fabric, I actually just made it an elastic waistband. So I made the skirt 32 inches, but because of the elastic I'm able to make it smaller. I could probably have tightened the elastic slightly, but I don't want to undo all that seaming, so that's not happening. It's totally fine when I have like a t-shirt or a jumper tucked in, but today I have an underslip thing on and it's really slippery and the skirt just wants to move down. I'm looking behind you because my computer is there with my notes, because I don't remember any of this. It's been 3 weeks or so, and I've just read it was 32 inches finished, not including seam allowances. So all of the panels, the 8 panels would then be seamed together, and it says in the pattern to use a sewing machine, so I did. But it does make quite bulky seams and obviously takes in even more fabric, so that was another reason when I saw it was going to be 23 inches. And that doesn't even include the seam allowances. It was going to be like a 20-inch waist or something ridiculous. I don't have that. So it is a finished 30 inch. What else? I really struggled to understand the pattern, but then when I just kept reading it over and over again, I eventually realised the reason. I thought mine doesn't look pleated, mine looks like a panelled skirt. And then I realised you're supposed to fold the panel in half and then sew a seam all the way down on the right side so that it looks like a panel, like a pleat. I don't know if I'm explaining that very well, but you will see in the video. I can try and show you. That's the seam, and that's the sewn pleat. So it did give it a really, really nice end look, because I wasn't sure what I was doing, what side I was supposed to do it on. I was very confused, but that is the theme of my knitting, and then eventually it comes out and I quite like it. The only thing I don't love are the bottom parts of the hem where the seams join. Is that what I want to say? Where the hem is and where the seams join. It's essentially like a circle skirt, but with lots of panels, and when you sew the hem on a circle skirt, you can kind of tweak the angle of the hem so that it does look circular, but when it's knitting and it's a folded over hem, it gets really bulky here, and trying to fold it. Why is my alarm going off? Trying to fold it in a way that would look circular would mean making really bulky seams like that all the way around and getting the angle right, and I wasn't sure if I liked it or if that would look good, so I just kind of seamed it in this pointy way. I don't know how to explain myself at all. You can see it in the photos. I made it look like it looks, instead of angling all of the seams to make it circle. But if and when I make this skirt again, I will try and do it so it looks like a circle skirt. It's just because you fold over the hem, you have to seam the ends, each separate end, and then the sewing machine can't get through that much fabric. My sewing machine can't, and so I had to hand seam that, which was a lot more difficult to align with the sewing machine. So that's what it looks like on the inside. So it's quite a bulky seam, and it gets even more bulky, which is why the sewing machine can't eat it, because it would have to eat through that much. I hope that made some form of sense. So overall, I love this skirt. I'm so proud of it and so pleased. I wanted to make it for Sweden and for my trip to Sweden and for the winter months, because I get so cold and my legs get really cold, and I have a wool skirt that I bought last year in a thrift store, and it's so warm, so I thought, a knitting machine, I could do this. So I have plans, I have many plans for many skirts, but at the moment I have this one and I love it very much, and it was a good way to use this yarn because I bought this yarn 4 years ago, and I don't know what I planned for this colour, but it's an insanely orange colour, and I did not know what to make with it. And then when I came across this skirt pattern in the vintage pattern manual to go with one of the English versions of my knitting machine, I thought, I could use the cone for this, and it would be very autumnal. It's giving me gourd vibes, very pumpkin-y. But that is the problem. I don't know what to wear that will not make me look like a walking Halloween costume or a pumpkin, because everything I have is green. So I made this top in order to have something to go with this that didn't look like Halloween. I wanted to talk about this more in my next normal knitting podcast episode. So I will leave it here, and then in my next video I'll talk more about it. I have about 80 grams left of the cone, so didn't use all of it. I did shorten the length slightly because I'm very short. I can't actually remember at all how long it was supposed to be, but I made it shorter. If I can remember when I'm editing, I'll put it here or I'll put it on my Ravelry notes, but it's kind of irrelevant to anyone else because I adjusted it just to what I like because I'm short. I'm 5'2", and what is that, 157 centimeters, I think. So most things have to be shortened, but I didn't want it to be too short that made it impractical, because it is for winter, and I didn't want it too long that I just drowned in fabric, and I didn't know if I'd have enough yarn if I made it any longer. But I definitely love this skirt immensely. So I think that is everything I want to say about it. As I said, it's been a while since I made it, because my mum has been here, I've been sick with whatever this is, and I've been on holiday. So I haven't been here, I haven't recorded anything, I haven't knitted anything, so I have to play catch up now, and it's hard to remember all the numbers and all the things that you did a month ago. But hopefully I covered it all, and I hope that I can record a normal episode soon to show you all the things I got up to with my mum and what I got up to in Sweden, and a little bit of Denmark and Germany. And yeah, I think that is it. I will wrap this up now. Hopefully the sound I can sort out on the computer, and I will see you next time. Thank you very much for watching, and if you like this kind of video, please leave a like, thumbs up, and comment if you wish to. Thank you very much. Bye!